Good afternoon. I'm Don Winter, and it is my great honor and privilege as the NAE Chair to welcome all of you to the 2021 National Academy of Engineering Annual Meeting. I must admit that I am most disappointed that we have to conduct this meeting virtually. Unfortunately, our hopes for COVID-19 pandemic relief have been dashed with the emergence of the Delta variant. I believe that the decision to switch back to this virtual format was a prudent one, and I remain hopeful that next year we will be able to return to an in-person meeting. In particular, the induction ceremony has been a highlight of the annual meeting. While we will not be able to conduct the ceremony in a traditional manner today, we will properly recognize all those whose induction has been limited to virtual announcements as soon as it is possible to do so. For many of the new members, this is also your first introduction to the Academy. Election to the NAE is a high honor, and I trust that you will take great satisfaction in being so recognized by your peers. I expect that your families also take great pride in this accomplishment. But while the NAE selects its new members based on an exhaustive search and evaluation process, it is much more than just an honorific society. The National Academy of Sciences was established in 1863 by Act of Congress. Its charter directs the Academy to, and I quote, "Whenever called upon by any department or agency of the government to investigate, examine, experiment, and report upon any subject of science or art." The National Academy of Engineering was founded in 1964 under that charter. I will let John Anderson describe the National Research Council, which is the Academy's operating arm for such activities, but I will note that our role as an advisor to the nation on technical matters has been a core responsibility for over 150 years. During this period, the academies have been relied upon to provide independent, objective, and nonpartisan advice with the highest standards of scientific and technical quality and integrity. To do so, the academies call upon the nation's preeminent experts in science, engineering, and medicine. In this process, the often critically needed engineering perspective has been and will continue to be a major demand function for the NAE. For those of you who have served on National Research Council committees, boards, or NAE programs, I would like to thank you and ask that you continue to do so, perhaps at even greater levels of involvement. For those of you who have not yet done so, I will encourage you to participate. I believe that you will find this form of service to be both intellectually challenging and most satisfying. Now, while our charter requires us to conduct investigations when requested, we are not limited to responding to governmental requests. There are occasions when important public policy issues that could benefit from NAE investigation are not the subject of governmental requests. When that occurs, I believe that it is most appropriate for the NAE to look for ways to opine on such matters. I would like to take this opportunity to talk to one of those issues that is of particular interest to me. I am concerned that there is a fundamental lack of understanding of the role that engineering plays in today's society. In a world where we often hear that words matter, it is disappointing to hear how the terms science and engineering are used or misused by many in positions of influence. The term science has taken on new meanings as the basis for numerous public policy decisions. Of course, we all want such decisions to follow the science, but it is easy to forget that science requires expert interpretation and evaluation and must be put into context to provide value. Furthermore, it is the application of science in the engineering of systems and solutions that serve society and that properly inform many crucial public policy decisions. Perhaps most concerning is the all-too-typical omission of the term engineering. Anthony Fauci's recent article in Science describing the development of the COVID-19 vaccines is a good case in point. His article does an excellent job of putting the development of the COVID-19 vaccine into the context of the evolving history of vaccines. He notes the many contributions of the teams that provided the biological tools for vaccine development and the work of those who adapted the tools to address COVID-19. Unfortunately, the article fails to mention the significant efforts expended to formulate, produce, and distribute billions of doses in a remarkably short period of time. Incredible engineering efforts enabling the vaccines to treat the world's population. Another example is President Biden's choice of words on the occasion of the recent Mars landing. He tweeted, and I quote, "Congratulations to NASA and everyone whose hard work made Perseverance's historic landing possible. Today proved once again that with the power of science and American ingenuity, nothing is beyond the realm of possibility." Unfortunately, while science is referenced, the word engineering is missing. Of course, the landing was made possible by previous scientific investigations of the Martian atmosphere, and the mission was enabled by the many scientific principles underlying space flight. But the incredibly complex spacecraft and its audacious landing sequence were the result of exceptional engineering efforts. Why is all of this concerning? Because it goes to the heart of engineering's role in society. Engineering is how we create solutions to society's needs and wants. It is how we advance civilization for the benefit of mankind. Engineering is the creative venture that enables the successful application of science. Without a public understanding of the unique role and value of engineering, our ability to attract the best and brightest will be put at risk, as will the ability to properly educate them in the discipline and culture of engineering. I believe that both the NAE and its members have a special responsibility to explain the unique nature of engineering, the value it provides society, and the great satisfaction that it can provide to its practitioners. That is an essential mission for the Academy and is a role that many of us can and should take on. I ask that you join me in advocating for the engineering profession. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce John Anderson, the distinguished president of the NAE, to deliver his address. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Academy of Engineering's 2021 annual meeting. I'm John Anderson, president of the NAE, and it is my honor to address this very distinguished gathering and celebrate the introduction of our new members, the class of 2021. This is our second year holding a virtual annual meeting. We are doing so out of an abundance of caution and concern for your health and safety. Thank you for pivoting to this online platform with us. And thanks to our wonderful staff for their hard work to make this a memorable meeting. Thank you, Don Winter, for your service as chair and for your salient comments on the importance of recognizing the contributions of engineering. Let me share some details about the historical significance of the NAE, the National Research Council, and our sister academies. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed a congressional charter that created the National Academy of Sciences. The country was mired in the Civil War, and part of Lincoln's focus was to elevate the sciences and engineering and utilize their technical expertise for advancing the military capabilities of the Union. The 50 initial members of the Academy were scientists, engineers, and physicians from academia, industry, and government. Many of the engineers were classified as inventors and manufacturers. Today, NAE carries the mantle of engineering and a strong connection to industry as well as academia and government. One of the first instances when the newly formed NAS was called upon to advise our young nation was to correct the accuracy of compasses on board ironclad ships. These were powerful armored vessels that were developed by a Swedish engineer to deflect cannonballs and other fire. But the iron armor caused the compasses to deviate and could have led to dangerous situations at sea. The NAS was tasked with assembling a committee to study the problem and make recommendations that corrected the compasses on nearly 30 wartime ships. I share this bit of history because I was reminded that engineering has a strong history of serving our country in times of war. However, we must continue to address critical matters in times of peace as well, as the current pandemic demonstrates. In 1916, the National Research Council was formed by President Woodrow Wilson. The NRC works collaboratively with the national academies to bring cooperation government with educational, industrial, and other research organizations to advance science and the development of American industries, strengthen the national defense, and promote national security and welfare. Today, the NRC serves as the operating arm of the overall organization called the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, or NASEM. In 1964, the National Academy of Engineering was established under the charter as the National Academy of Sciences to provide independent and objective advice to the government and public on matters of engineering and technology, and to advance the profession of engineering. In 1970, the National Academy of Medicine was established. It was originally called the Institute of Medicine. Our mission dictates that service is an important aspect of NAE membership. Last year, 55% of our members participated in at least one activity of the NRC or the NAE. One of my priorities is to increase this number. I view member participation as a direct measure of the health and vitality of the National Academy of Engineering. So we will attempt to put you all to work. I emphasize that the academies are not part of the government, and this is by design. Our work is independent and nonpartisan, and there is no federal line item for us, nor any congressional appropriation, as many might think. This ensures that the important work we do remains objective, nonpartisan, and credible. However, a burden of this independence is our dependence on philanthropy. More than 50% of the NAE's operating budget derives from past and current donations by our members, foundations, corporations, and other friends. When I ask you to donate to the NAE, you can be assured of two things. First, your donation is supporting very important work, and second, your donation is critical to the operations of the NAE. Our members are generous with their time and financial support, and I thank you for this. The first class of NAE members in 1964 had 25, 52% from the business sector, 36% from universities, and 12% from national laboratories. Note in the picture the uniform dress code and the uniform gender and race. This year, we elected 104 new members. This slide shows a sample of the class of 2021. Note the comparison with the class of 1964. We also elected 24 new international members from 17 countries. With our newfound skills in dealing with virtual meetings, honed over almost 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are in a better position to engage our international members in both NRC and NAE activities. This slide shows some demographics of the members being introduced today. I congratulate the NAE members who served on our election committees and brought about this result. With intention and effort, we have made some progress since 1992. This slide also demonstrates the importance of immigration to the technical workforce of this country. 33% of the U.S. members elected this year were born outside of the United States. Immigrants have contributed substantially to the success of this country, and we must ensure that we continue to welcome them. Currently, we have about 2,300 U.S. members and 290 international members, representing multiple fields of engineering, bringing unmatched expertise and life experiences to advance the mission of NAE. Science and engineering, what's the difference? To quote Theodore von Karman, the father of aeronautics and the first recipient of the U.S. Medal of Science, scientists discover what is, engineers create what never was. As Chairman Don Winter noted in his address, engineering is about creating products, processes, and systems that address human needs and sometimes anticipate human needs. The key word here is create. The symbiotic relationship between science and engineering has produced great improvements in the quality of human life. But whether one is acting as a scientist or engineer is not determined solely by one's educational degree. Rather, it is determined by what the person is doing. Note that 20% of the new members being introduced today have no formal degree in engineering. An example of the power of engineering to improve the human condition is found in the fight against COVID-19, which unfortunately remains ongoing. In several public addresses, NAE member David Walt has laid out the contributions by engineers in this fight, which he summarizes in 4 areas: testing, protective equipment, vaccines and therapeutics, and data analysis. David notes that within just a few weeks of the outbreak of COVID-19, the full genetic code of the virus was determined with the help of DNA sequencers developed by engineers, much faster than was possible in previous pandemics. This advance led to the development of vaccine at near record speed by scientists and engineers, and the scale-up of vaccine production to billions of doses that tilted the battle in favor of humans instead of microbes. This is a great example of the value of collaboration between science and engineering aimed at solving a global problem threatening all of us. Engineering enabled the manufacturing and scaling of personal protective devices. Masks, gowns, and face shields are the first line of defense against COVID-19. Scaling up the production of functional personal protective devices resulted from additive manufacturing, a technology based on 3D printing that enabled thousands of masks to be printed in a matter of hours. From protective gear to diagnostics to vaccines to data analysis, engineering has played a major role in combating COVID-19 in the U.S. and on a global scale. To support our mission, we have reorganized the NAE Program Office consistent with what I call the 4 I's: identify and inform the frontiers of engineering theory, practice, and policy; increase engineering talent through a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion; instill a culture of ethical and environmental responsibility in engineering; and improve capabilities and competencies for complex systems engineering. The second I recognizes the need to continue to open up the profession to new minds and new ideas. To do so will require a variety of learning paths to attract a diverse array of students to engineering who are able to compete on any playing field. We work to communicate and partner across traditional and non-traditional lines to foster a better understanding and appreciation of engineering. 2 NAE programs focus on this goal. The first is NAE's effort to spark excitement about engineering in girls in grades K through 12 and connect them to opportunities and role models. Engineer Girl programs build engineering leadership and confidence in girls around the country. Engineer Girl is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and it represents one very exciting way the NAE is speaking to different audiences. What began as a resource website is now a dynamic outreach platform that connects with girls, their parents and caregivers, and the educational community. Since its inception, over 10,000 students, both boys and girls, have participated in its annual writing contest. This year, we asked some of the past winners to tell us what participating in it meant to them. And you can see on this slide some of their responses. The Engineer Girl Ambassadors Program, now in its fourth year, and introduced over 1,500 middle and elementary school students to engineering. Some of the high school mentors led online clubs where girls get to talk to women engineers from all over the U.S., and others have been meeting outdoors to work on design projects in teams similar to what we do in universities to educate engineers. I want to take this moment to thank the committed sponsors who have made these programs possible. Sponsors like the Chevron Corporation, Clark Foundation, Kenan Foundation, Lockheed Martin, Oracle, and others have made Engineering Girl a sustaining activity of the NAE. And the foresight and philanthropy of Mr. John McDonnell, former CEO of McDonnell Douglas, pushed us to develop the Ambassadors Program and provided funding to launch it. Many NAE members and friends over the years have also contributed to Engineer Girl as role models, as volunteers, and as donors. This is an example of where your contributions of time and financial resources can make a difference. Another way we promote excellence in engineering through outreach is the Frontiers of Engineering program. The FOE program selects high-achieving engineers who are early in their careers to learn about leading-edge developments in fields beyond their own. It brings together engineers from the U.S. and other countries to promote the transfer of new techniques and approaches across fields. In addition to the annual U.S. Symposium, we have bilateral programs with the EU, Japan, Germany, and China. And this year we had greater interest from other countries hoping to partner with us on the FOE program. These meetings are a forum for sharing ideas to generate new knowledge and new technologies, innovative capacity, and economic vitality. There's also a grant program for U.S. participants to encourage collaboration. In its 25-year history, the FOE program has been so effective in recognizing and promoting career development that 140 of its alums have been elected to the NAE, including 13 in the class being introduced today. The work of the National Research Council is the lever that enables collaboration and research to produce valuable consensus study reports that provide objective and nonpartisan advice with high standards of technical quality. The NRC is organized into 7 divisions which support standing boards and conduct important studies for the government and public. The convening power of the NAE and the other 2 academies is critical to providing the volunteer talent to address some of the country's and the world's most crucial problems. As NAE members, many of you will be called upon to serve on these committees and panels. Such member engagement is a critical aspect of your NAE service to the nation, and when you are asked to volunteer, I hope you will accept. It is an exceptional and very rewarding role that can have significant impact. A few recent examples illustrate the range of opportunities and impacts. NAE members served on a consensus study by the Division on Engineering and Physical Sciences that produced a report this year on accelerating decarbonization of the U.S. energy system. The report lays out a policy roadmap and key technology goals necessary to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Several committee members testified before Congress, where the findings are informing legislation related to future energy policy. NAE members made up half the committee that produced a 2020 report on innovation in information technology. Its conclusions were cited by the National Science Foundation in its FY22 budget request to Congress. NAE members also served on the study that produced the Transportation Research Board's 2020 consensus report, Leveraging Unmanned Systems for Coast Guard Authorities, which recommended that the U.S. Coast Guard proceed more aggressively and deliberately in taking advantage of unmanned systems technology. The report prompted the chair and ranking member of a House committee to write to the Commandant of the Coast Guard, and now there is a new Coast Guard Unmanned Systems Office as specified in the report's recommendations. Broadening participation in engineering is a goal that ranks at the top of NAE's responsibilities. When we find areas that do not foster diversity or present obstacles to participating, we work to guide a better future. The 2018 National Academy Report on Sexual Harassment of Women, Climate, Culture, and Consequences in Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine makes it clear that system-wide changes that go beyond compliance are necessary to tackle systems, cultures, and a climate that enables sexual harassment to exist and therefore negatively affect the well-being of those participating in these fields. A seminal step towards remedying this problem is the Action Collaborative on Preventing Sexual Harassment in Higher Education, where over 60 colleges, universities, and other research institutions work to identify, research, and develop and implement efforts to address and prevent all forms of sexual harassment. The Action Collaborative is in its third year and most recently counted more than 60 new initiatives from among its members that focus on areas such as improving hiring practices and creating bystander intervention training. I again emphasize the expectation of service and volunteerism for NAE members. Keep in mind that engineer is both a noun and a verb, implying action. I turn to the words of Albert Einstein, who said, "Only a life lived in the service to others is worth living." It is a great honor to be elected to the NAE, but like a university commencement, it is just the beginning. I look forward to working with you as we strive toward the betterment of this country, the world, and this organization. For that, I thank you in advance. I would like to thank all the NAE staff who make our organization work so well. It is a wonderful group of individuals, and they make good things happen. We owe them a lot. I also acknowledge the remarkable group of officers and counselors who govern the NAE. These individuals are elected by the members to serve the organization, and they do so with skill, selfless effort, and integrity. I now turn to the most important part of this program, recognition of the NAE class of 2021. Note that we will repeat this ceremony in person at the annual meeting in 2022, so that every member of the class of 2021 will have the opportunity to be properly introduced and walk across the stage of this auditorium to sign the membership rolls. Dr. Al Romig, NAE member and executive officer, will now introduce the class of 2021. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, John. As John said, my name is Al Romig, the current NAE executive officer. I came here in 2015 after a career in aerospace and defense, culminating at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. In that former life, I was often referred to as the Chief Skunk. We are extremely proud of our new members, and we're also proud of our longtime serving members. We're excited to recognize them in this virtual meeting. We look very much forward to being able to hold the formal induction of the class of 2021 at a future time, and we look forward to holding the entire annual meeting in person. The following individuals are celebrating a significant membership anniversary. The class of 1971, celebrating 50 years, Roy W. Gould and Robert G. Lowy. The class of 1976, celebrating 45 years. The class of 1981, celebrating 40 years. The class of 1986, celebrating 35 years. The class of 1991, celebrating 30 years. The class of 1996, celebrating 25 years. We'd like to thank and congratulate all of our anniversary members for their years of service. Their names are also available in the online directory. As John and Don both said, although we are unable to sit together in the great auditorium at the National Academies this year, we are grateful for the opportunity to celebrate and acknowledge excellence in engineering. We are optimistic that current advances in engineering will foster a brighter future. In fact, it's been interesting to us looking at how the world has responded to the pandemic of how important engineering has been, from manufacturing to supply chains to distribution to packaging and so forth, although we oftentimes get little credit compared to science and medicine. But congratulations to the engineering community for a job well done, although we're not quite finished yet. Today, we are celebrating the marvelous contributions that the engineers in this year's class have made in research, innovation, manufacturing, education, and the creation of novel technologies, and in the designing the solutions to real-world problems. I think you know how competitive this process is. Several years ago, prior to assuming this job, I was the chair of the committee of membership, as was John Anderson, in fact, who followed me by a couple of years. And from that role, I know how talented these classes really are. As executive officer, I also have the opportunity to review this year's class, and I assure you, you are all as distinguished as ever. Arthur C. Clarke, a former member of the NAE, now deceased, and the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey, said that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We take this moment to acknowledge some of the magic of engineering. Engineering is a marvelously creative enterprise, and the citations reflect that creativity. Engineering improves the human condition, and that is a message we are consistently trying to convey to the public, young and old. Engineering solves problems for people and society, put simply. John cited our history going back to the National Academy of Sciences in 1863 as an organization that is meant to use the talents of the nation's preeminent scientists, engineers, and physicians. In light of the global challenges we currently face, from pandemic to climate change, now more than ever, it is important that the National Academy of Engineering continues to engage in this endeavor. Now to the introduction of our new members and international members. For all of you who are joining today, we make great efforts to introduce people by properly pronouncing their names. And I will tell you that with the monumental help of my assistant, Jatrice Jackson, we've been talking to you, listening to voicemail, talking to your assistants or your colleagues, or consulting Mr. Google. And I will try my very best, despite my American accent, to do just that. What I will do is read the name, the affiliation, and the election citation, first for the new members and then for the new international members. Russell J. Algor, Chief Scientist, Amazon, for application of operations engineering to design and improve logistics and fulfillment systems for e-commerce. Barry Arkles, Chairperson and CEO, Gelacet Incorporated, for contributions to organosilicon materials and organometallic and biochemical reagents. James R. Arnold, Principal, Taproot Construction, LLC, for commercial application of processes for gold and silver recovery and implementation of advanced environmental controls. John G. Auninch, Senior Advisor, Bioprocess and Manufacturing, Ceres Therapeutics Incorporated, for advances in bioprocess engineering, the introduction of new vaccines, and the development of microbiome-based products. Santok S. Badisha, Corporate Fellow and Manager, Open Innovation, Xerox Corporation, for developing materials enabling the broad use of laser printing and the creation of color laser printing. James L. Barnard, global practice and technology leader, Black & Veatch Engineers and Architects, for the development and implementation of biological nutrient removal in water treatment. Luis Andre Barroso, Vice President and Google Fellow, Google Incorporated, for contributions to the architecture, design, and performance of energy-efficient warehouse-scale computing. James G. Bellingham, Executive Director, Institute for Assured Autonomy, Johns Hopkins University, for design, development, and deployment of autonomous underwater vehicles to advance understanding of the ocean and its resources. David Bem, Chief Technology Officer and Vice President of Science and Technology, PPG Industries Incorporated, for business leadership and a sustained record of materials discovery to commercialization. Christopher N. Bowman, James and Catherine Patton Endowed Chair and Distinguished Professor, University of Colorado, Boulder, for development of photopolymerization reactions for adaptable polymer networks and their innovative applications. Julia J. Brown, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Universal Display Corporation, for contributions to materials and device technologies for phosphorescent light-emitting diode displays and their commercialization. Christopher B. Burke, Chief Executive Officer, Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited, for leadership in executing complex water resource projects and service to the engineering community. Carlos A. Cabrera, Executive Chairman, Genomatica Incorporated, for leadership in developing and commercializing widely adopted processes for fuels and intermediate chemicals. Sultan J. Sendez, Adjunct Professor, Carnegie Mellon University, for contributions to theory, development, and commercialization of electromagnetics simulation software. Lily Cheng, Corporate Vice President, Conversation AI, Microsoft Corporation, for scientific and industrial leadership in user interface design, social computing, and computing education. James E. Colgate, Breed University Professor of Design, Mechanical Engineering, Northwestern University, for development of haptic interface technologies, including surface haptics for touchscreens. Lance R. Collins, Vice President and Executive Director of the Innovation Campus, Virginia Tech, for contributions to understanding turbulent processes, leadership in engineering, and contributions to the diversity of the profession. Catherine F. Corrigan, Chief Executive Officer and President, Exponent Incorporated, for elucidation of injury mechanisms and mitigation and leadership in biomechanical engineering and scientific consulting. Errol B. Davis, Jr., Board Member, Atlanta Public Schools, for leadership in research and development of renewable resources integration with the grid and public education. Peter J. Delfiette, Jr., Pegasus Professor and University Trustee Chair, University of Central Florida, for contributions to development and commercialization of low-noise, high-power, ultra-fast semiconductor lasers. Jonathan S. Dordick, Institute Professor, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, for contributions to methods for rapidly screening drug efficacy and toxicity and biocatalytic technologies for improving human health. Francis J. Doyle III, John A. and Elizabeth S. Armstrong Professor and Paulson Dean, Engineering and Applied Sciences, Harvard University, for insights into natural biological control systems and innovative engineering of diabetes control devices. Frederick Dreyer, Professor, Mechanical Engineering and Aeronautical Engineering, University of South Carolina. For contributions to understanding of combustion processes for propulsion and transportation applications and for fire safety. William T. Freeman, Principal Scientist, Google Incorporated, for contributions to computer vision and image enhancement. Andres J. Garcia, Regents Professor, Woodruff School of Mechanical Engineering, Georgia Institute of Technology, for contributions to molecular engineering of biomaterial surfaces and cell adhesion force technology to characterize stem and cancer cells. Gary J. Goldberg, Director, BHP Group Limited, for promoting safety, sustainability, inclusion, value, ethics, and responsibility into the mining industry. Charles N. Haas, L.D. Betts Professor of Environmental Engineering, Drexel University, for contributions to quantitative microbial risk assessment for drinking water quality and public health. Craig J. Hawker, Director of the California Nanosystems Institute, Director of Dow Materials Institute, University of California, Santa Barbara, for contributions to polymer chemistry through synthetic organic chemistry concepts and the advancement of molecular engineering principles. Nick Hazen, President and CEO, Hazen Research Incorporated, for leadership in the commercial development of hydrometallurgical processes for recovering metals from ores. Mary C. Hill, Professor of Geology, University of Kansas, for contributions to development and application of methods for parameter estimation and sensitivity analysis in hydrogeologic models. William W. Hogan, Raymond Planck Professor of Global Energy Policy, Harvard University, for contributions to electricity industry restructuring, electricity market design, and energy policy modeling and analysis. Jonathan P. Howe, Richard Cockburn McLaurin Professor, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for contributions to decision-making and control of intelligent autonomous aerospace vehicles. Hao Wang, Technology Chief, retired, General Electric Aviation, for contributions to advances in electric machines and power electronics technologies for aerospace electrical systems. Patricia N. Herter, Chief Executive Officer and President, Lindra Therapeutics, for leadership in formulation technologies, amorphous dispersions, and continuous processing for hepatitis C and cystic fibrosis treatments. Maria D. Elich, Senior Research Scientist, Laboratory for Information and Decision Systems, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for contributions to electric power system analysis and control. Donald E. Ingber, Founding Director, Judah Folkman Professor of Vascular Biology, Harvard University, for interdisciplinary contributions to mechanobiology and microsystems engineering and leadership in biologically inspired engineering. Catherine J. Jackson, owner, Dr. Catherine Jackson, LLC, for contributions to management of large-scale power system technology and harmonization of engineering solutions with public policy. Christopher T. Jones, Chief of Operations, the Leadership Compass, for leadership of defense logistics, sustainment, training, and system readiness in support of U.S. national security. Zakia H. Kafafi, Distinguished Research Fellow, Electrical and Computer Engineering, Lehigh University, for contributions to materials technologies for organo-optoelectronics. David L. Kaplan, Stern Family Professor of Engineering and Distinguished University Professor, Tufts University, for contributions to silk-based materials for tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. Terry L. Kelly, Director, United Rentals, for leadership in product development and commercialization by advancing management practices that foster innovation. Thomas F. Kelly, Founder, President, and CEO, STEAM Instruments Incorporated, for design and commercialization of the local electrode atom probe to yield 3D atomic scale analysis of materials. Ann S. Karimijian, C.L. Peck Class of 1906 Professor, School of Engineering, Stanford University, for research and dissemination of probabilistic seismic hazard methods and mentoring. Witold F. Krajewski, Rose and Joseph Summers Chair in Water Resources Engineering, the University of Iowa, for advances in flood prediction and mitigation. Roger A. Crone, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Leidos Incorporated, for technical leadership in industry engineering and advances in aerospace and information technology programs. Rajiv Laroya, co-founder and CTO, Light Labs, for contributions to adaptive multi-user orthogonal frequency division multiplexing for cellular voice and data systems. Shelley K. Lavender, retired Senior Vice President, Strike, Surveillance, and Mobility, Boeing Defense, Space, and Security, The Boeing Company, for contributions to technological advances of military aircraft platforms and systems. B. G. Lee, Chief Engineer for Solar System Exploration, Planetary Flight Systems Directorate, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, for contributions to 20 planetary exploration missions to Mars, Jupiter, asteroids, and comets. Claire Leon, owner, Claire Leon Consulting, LLC, for technical and engineering management of national security space systems. Francis E. Lockwood, Chief Technology Officer, Valvoline, for contributions and leadership in the development of sustainable lubricants in automotive and industrial applications. Azad M. Madni, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Technology Officer, Intelligent Systems Technology Incorporated, for advances in low-cost simulation-based training using interdisciplinary model-based approaches. William D. Magwood IV, Director General, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, for leadership and contributions to research programs that drive innovation in global nuclear energy enterprises. Hani S. Mamasani, William A. Patterson Distinguished Chair in Transportation, Director, Transportation Center, Northwestern University, for contributions to modeling of intelligent transportation networks and to interdisciplinary collaboration in transportation engineering. Josh Mackauer, General Partner, New Enterprise Associates, for inventing balloon sinuplasty and for leading the commercialization of this and multiple other innovations. James O. Malley, Group Director and Senior Principal, Degenkolb Engineers, for leadership in improving seismic design. Louis A. Martin Vega, Professor and Dean of Engineering, North Carolina State University, for support of engineering and engineering education through industry academic collaboration and opportunities for underrepresented groups. Margaret R. Martinosi, Hugh Trumbull Adams 35 Professor, Princeton University, for contributions to power-aware and power-efficient computer architectures and mobile systems. Marcia K. McNutt, President, National Academy of Sciences, for elucidation of lithosphere geomechanics and leadership in earth resources engineering. Pamela A. Melroy, Chief Executive Officer, Melroy and Hallett Technology Partners, LLC, for contributions to human spaceflight, space access, space situation awareness, and military aeronautics systems. Danielle W. Murfeld, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, GE Renewable Energy, General Electric Company, for leadership and development of products for large wind turbines and solar photovoltaic systems. Sumita B. Mitra, founder and partner, Mitra Chemical Consulting, LLC, for designing and engineering nanomaterials that have revolutionized dental care worldwide. Mick C. Mounts, founder and CEO, retired, Kiva Systems Incorporated, for advancing industrial mobile robotic material handling systems for order fulfillment. Julio A. Navarro, Senior Technical Fellow, Boeing Research and Technology, The Boeing Company, for development and implementation of phased array sensors and communication systems for aerospace applications. Oyekunle Olakotun, Cadence Design Professor, Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, Stanford University, for contributions to on-chip multiprocessor architectures and advancement to commercial realization. Mari Ostendorf, System Design Methodologies Professor, University of Washington, for contributions to statistical and prosodic models for speech and natural language processing and for advances in conversational dialogue systems. Maria Palacios, President and CEO, Lyra Therapeutics, for outstanding contributions to the design of medical devices and drug delivery systems. Zhongxi Pang, Epstein Family Chair of Industrial and Systems Engineering, University of Southern California, for the development of methods to advance the theory and applications of optimization in operations research. Mario J. Paniccia, CEO, Anello Photonics, for contributions to integrated silicon photonic devices and their commercialization. Glaucio H. Paulino, Raymond Allen Jones Chair and Professor, Civil and Environmental Engineering, Georgia Institute of Technology, for contributions to topology optimization and its applications to medicine and engineering. Fernando C. Pereira, Vice President and Engineering Fellow, Google Incorporated, for contributions to speech, natural language, and machine learning. David J. Perot, Joseph F. and Nancy P. Keithley Professor of Electrical Engineering, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for contributions to power electronics technology and design techniques for very high frequency energy conversion. Mark T. Peters, Executive Vice President for Laboratory Operations, Battelle Memorial Institute, for leadership and contributions in advancing U.S. nuclear energy capabilities and infrastructure. Joseph B. Powell, Chief Scientist, Chemical Engineering, Chemicals and New Energy Technology, Shell Technology Center, for contributions to process developments in energy, chemicals, and biofuels technologies. Laura J. Pyragnolti, Distinguished Professor of Physics and Astronomy, Purdue University, for advances in understanding of the processes that link the mechanical, hydraulic, and seismic properties in discontinuities. William A. Radasky, President, Managing Engineer, Meditech Corporation, for leadership in the development and application of electromagnetic transient disturbance and protection standards for national security and commercial systems. Theodore S. Rappaport, David Lee Ernst Weber Chaired Professor, New York University Tandon School of Engineering, for contributions to the characterization of radio frequency propagation in millimeter wave bands for cellular communication networks. Lutgard M. Raskin, Vernon L. Snollink, Distinguished University Professor, Altram E.R.M. Russell O'Neill Professor of Engineering, University of Michigan, for application of genetic tools to improve anaerobic biological water treatment. Peter B. Romer, GE Healthcare, retired, for contributions to performance improvements and widespread availability of MRI technology. Jeannie M. Rosario, former Vice President and General Manager, Engineering Division, General Electric Aviation, for leadership in advancing aircraft engine design, global engineering, and support for women in engineering. Christian K. Subnani, Networking Research VP Emeritus, Bell Labs, Nokia, for contributions to software-defined routing and networks. Kamal Sarabandi, Rufus S. Teasdale Endowed Professor of Engineering, University of Michigan, for contributions to the science and technology of radar remote sensing. Mark P. Sarkeesian, Partner, Structural and Seismic Engineering, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, LLP, for innovation in efficient and aesthetic design of tall buildings and structures. Rachel A. Siegelman, Department Chair and Edward Noble Kramer Professor, University of California, Santa Barbara, for contributions to semiconducting block polymers, polymeric ionic liquids, and hybrid thermoelectric materials. J. Marshall Shepard, Georgia Athletic Association Distinguished Professor and Director, University of Georgia, for development of methods to understand the Earth's hydrometeorological and hydroclimate system, and for climate science public communication and outreach. John B. Simpson, Staff Cardiologist, Sequoia Hospital, for contributions to coronary angioplasty and atherectomy and their widespread application. Winston O. Sobeyejo, Senior Vice President and Provost, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, for contributions to understanding dynamic behavior of materials and for leadership in STEM outreach in Africa. S. V. Srinivasan, Joe C. Walter Endowed Chair in Engineering, the University of Texas at Austin, for research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in industrial deployment of nano-imprint lithography equipment. Kathleen J. Stebbe, Goodwin Professor, Applied Sciences and Engineering, University of Pennsylvania, for contributions to understanding of non-equilibrium processes at soft matter interfaces and their impact on new technologies. Yu-Chung Tai, Anna L. Rosen Professor of Electrical Engineering and Medical Engineering, California Institute of Technology, for contributions to micro-electromechanical system technologies and Parylene-based biomedical microdevices. Juming Tang, Regent Professor and Distinguished Chair of Food Engineering, Washington State University, for invention and commercialization of electromagnetic spectrum wave-based food processes. Jefferson W. Tester, Kroll Professor of Sustainable Energy Systems, Cornell University, for leadership and development of novel renewable energy systems. Michael M. Thackeray, Argonne Emeritus, Distinguished Fellow and Senior Scientist, Argonne National Laboratory, for invention of cathode materials that dominate in lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles and grid storage. Levi T. Thompson, Elizabeth Inez Kelly Professor and Dean, College of Engineering, University of Delaware, for advances in catalysis and energy storage, entrepreneurship, and academic leadership. Arthur J. Tipton, founder and CEO, Vulcan Gray, for the development and commercialization of drug delivery systems, business leadership, and fostering STEM education of disadvantaged students. Nikhil C. Trivedi, Senior Partner, Eidkin International, for development of minerals processing technologies and mineral products for the paper, polymer, and building industries. Hongtae E. Sang, Senior Technical Leader, Ford Research and Innovation Center, Ford Motor Company, for contributions to control systems for enhanced vehicle safety. Vicki A. Vansant, President, Vansant Electric Transmission Consulting, Incorporated, for contributions to advanced transmission protection and wide area monitoring systems. Yuri Vlasov, GEBI Founder Professor of Engineering, Electrical and Computer Engineering, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, for contributions to development and commercialization of silicon photonics for optical data communications. Cindy L. Wallace-Lage, Executive Director and President, Water Business, Black & VTech Engineers Architects, for applying innovative technology to complex large-scale water infrastructure systems. Chris J. Wernicke, Chairman, President, and CEO, ABS Group of Companies, for innovations in the design, engineering, and operation of ships and offshore structures. Donald R. Wilton, Professor Emeritus, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, University of Houston, for contributions to computational electromagnetics of highly complex structures. Murthy V. Yala, Vice President and General Manager, Hubbell Incorporated, Beckwith Electric Business Unit, for contributions to digital protection and control devices for the grid. Jackie Y. Ying, Senior Fellow, Agency for Science, Technology, and Research, A-STAR, for contributions at the interface of nanostructured materials, nanomedicine, and diagnostic devices to improve human health. Matthew J. Zaluzek, Professor of Material Science and Engineering, University of Florida, for innovation of lightweight materials and manufacturing technologies to improve automotive fuel economy and safety and reduce the carbon footprint. Now to the introduction of the class of 2021 international members. Takuzo Aida, Professor of Chemistry and Biotechnology, University of Tokyo, for contributions to the engineering of smart and adaptive molecular materials using physical perturbation of multivalent interactions. Hamid Al-Hashim, Principal Research Scientist, Petroleum Research Center, Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, for research in support of improved materials for the energy sector and establishment of atmospheric corrosion maps for Kuwait. Paula M. Alves, CEO, IBIT Instituto de Biologica Experimental y Tecnológica, for leadership in biomanufacturing, advanced biotherapeutics, and bridging the gap between academia and industry. Giuseppe Bellucci, Senior Vice President, Development, Operations and Technology Division, retired, ENI SPA, for development and commercialization of environmentally beneficial chemical processes. Sebastian Seria, Chief Executive Officer, Quantigo, for application of optimization tools to advance integer, program, and financial engineering. Peter Fratzel, Director, Professor, Dr. H.C., Department of Biomaterials, Max Planck Institute of Colloids and Interfaces, for studies of structure and physical properties of biological materials and their application in material science and medicine. Xiaobin Fu, Professor and Director, College of Life Sciences, General Hospital of PLA, for achievements in elucidating wound healing mechanisms and sweat gland regeneration, and national leadership in clinical management of trauma. Luis E. Garcia, Honorary Professor, University de los Andes, for contributions to the earthquake-resistant design, construction, and building code development of concrete structures. Elizabeth L. Guazelli, Distinguished Senior Researcher, Matière et Systèmes Complexes, CNRS, University of Paris, for experiments and theory that enhance understanding of dispersed particulate systems. Sudhir K. Jain, Director, Indian Institute of Technology, Gandhinagar, for leadership in earthquake engineering in developing countries. Jaishraj B. Joshi, Emeritus Professor of Eminence, University Institute of Chemical Technology, for contributions in rational design of multi-phase chemical process equipment and leadership in shaping the Indian chemical industry. Johan W. Kolar, Professor, Information Technology and Electrical Engineering, ETH Zurich, for contributions to power electronic technologies, multi-objective design optimization, education, and technology transfer to industry. Khaled B. Lataif, Newbright Professor of Engineering, Chair Professor, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, for contributions to adaptive resource allocation in multi-user orthogonal frequency division multiplexing wireless systems and for academic leadership. Alejandro Lopez Valdivieso, Research Professor, Mineral Engineering, Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí, for contributions to the processing of complex sulfide ores and educational leadership. Yoel Marek, VP of Research, Amazon, for contributions to online information retrieval and data management and leadership in applied industrial research. Mario V. Pereira, President and Chief Innovation Officer, PSR Energy Consulting and Analytics, for contributions to methodology and implementation of multi-stage stochastic optimization in hydroelectric scheduling, energy planning, and policy. Barbara Sherwood Lawler, University Professor of Earth Sciences, University of Toronto, for contributions to understanding of evolution of Earth's groundwater and atmosphere. Pierre M. Souquet, Distinguished Senior Scientist, Laboratoire de Mécanique de Acoustique, CNRS, University of Paris, for contributions to the mechanics of nonlinear behavior of heterogeneous viscoplastic solids. Christopher Tomaso, Regis Professor of Engineering, Imperial College, London, for innovations in electronics for medicine, including rapid diagnostics. Marinus A. Vandenbrink, President and Chief Technology Officer, ASML, for driving advances in optical and extreme ultraviolet lithography that enable smaller, faster, and more energy-efficient semiconductor devices. Luc Vandenhove, President and CEO, Inter-University Microelectronics Center, for leadership in major international industry-university collaborations for the semiconductor industry. Young Sheng Su, President, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, for contributions in space robotics and autonomous systems. Wanmin Zai, Dean of Faculty, Southwest Jiangtong University, for contributions to the design and operation of high-speed rail transportation networks. Xiao Xin Zhou, Honorary President, China Electric Power Research Institute, for contributions to the development and implementation of power systems technology in China. Congratulations to the NAE class of 2021.